Don't wake the mummy. Don't wake the mummy. Focus question. What does the author of this story want readers to learn about what to do when faced with problems? Chapter 1. To speak the name of the dead is to make them live again, the tour guide whispered ominously. The class giggled at what they thought to be just another stage part of the tour. Throughout the town, he continued, and especially when we entered the burial chamber, we must refer to the mummy as the king or pharaoh. Is that understood? The group members nodded their agreement as they quickly realized this was not another superstition. I knew the guide had been telling the truth because I had read about it on the internet in preparation for our class trip. Now here we are in Egypt, inside an actual pyramid, on our way down to the burial chamber to look at an actual mummy. Come along, children. Mrs. Crabwalk's voice rose above the noise, and everyone obediently started to file out of the ritual shaft in pairs. Everyone except for Simon. I found him at the back of the room trying to decipher the symbols on the wall. Simon Montier, what would you do without me? I teased. Honestly, sometimes I think you actually want to get left behind. Amy, look, I've figured out what this means, Simon said. I glanced back and checked the progress of the Quayu. Only half of the group had filed out of the room, so I figured we had a couple of minutes left. I definitely wanted to hear what Simon had found out, but I absolutely did not want to get in trouble with Mrs. Crabwalk. It says here that they pulled the mummy's brain out throughout its nose, Simon told me, and then he describes the whole mummification process. After all of that, they wrapped the mummy in the bandages from head to toe and put them in the sarcophagus. The process can preserve the mummies for thousands of years. Wow, that's cool, I exclaimed just as I saw our last classmate leaving the chamber. Shoot, come on, we need to catch up. I grabbed Simon by the shirt and dragged him towards the door. We waited for Mrs. Crabwalk to turn turned the other way, and then we successfully slipped into the back of the line. Our classmates stumped their way up a wide flight of stairs, down a narrow corridor, and into the next chamber. Simon stopped to inspect every insect and object that crossed our paths. I had to drag him back to the line at least 3 times. Finally, we all crowded into a room where the walls were covered with images of the pharaoh and several gods. The guide said that the images were part of an ancient writing system called Egyptian hieroglyphics, and he mentioned for everyone to gather around one of the images. He explained the relationship between the pharaoh and his people and how the pharaoh was connected to the gods. Of course, I already knew this story, but it was 100 times more fascinating listening to it while looking at the actual hieroglyphs on the walls than reading about it in school. Simon, however, did not find it as interesting as I did and had decided to translate his own story. He stayed close enough to the group, so I decided to leave him alone. The guide finished his narrative on the life of the pharaoh and made his way to the back of the room. He paused in the doorway and called for everyone's attention, because as it's the burial chamber where the mummy of the great king lies. The room went completely silent. The guide had captured everyone's interest, even Simon's. Enter if you dare, he shouted and then disappeared into the darkness of the burial chamber. Simon and I agreed it was all very theatrical, but pretty cool. We enjoyed the line and walked single file into the tomb. Exclamations of surprise echoed around the chamber as the red sarcophagus came into our view. This room was much smaller than the rest, and we all crowded around, smashing elbows to get a closer view as the guide slowly raised the lid to reveal the full-sized mummy inside. I squeezed my way toward the sarcophagus and looked in awe at the mummy. I held my spot as long as I could, but 3 was just too much shoving. I finally managed to squeeze my way out of the tightly packed mess of bodies and went looking for Simon. He was sitting in the corner reading an ancient-looking book filled with hundreds of illustrations. I peered over his shoulder at page after page of pictures of pharaohs in boats on journeys to mysterious places. Chapter 2. Where are they going? I asked. I'm working on it, Simon mumbled, but I think they're traveling into the underworld. I glanced over my shoulder to check on the others and saw they had already left the tomb. I jumped up in a panic. Everyone's gone, Simon, I shouted. Come on, we're going to get in trouble with Mrs. Crabwalk. He didn't even look at me. Impatiently, I stopped over and grabbed his arm. I figured it out, he shouted. The picture relates the journey that King Amenhotep II took in some sort of solar-powered boat on his way to the sun god. I dropped his arm and felt a look of horror spread over my face. Simon was immediately apologetic. I'm sorry, Amy. I didn't mean to keep us here so long. Don't worry. Maybe Mrs. Crabwalk won't notice we're gone if we hurry. You said his name, I whispered. Whose name? Do you mean King Amenhotep? Shh, stop saying it. Don't you know that if you speak the name of the dead, you bring them back to life? His eyes widened with comprehension. Oh no, I forget. He slapped his forehead with the palm of his hand. How could I be so stupid? I read about that, and it even mentions it here in this book. Simon said as he fumbled with the book. It flipped out of his hands and landed with a thud. We both looked at the book lying on the dirt floor near the closed sarcophagus in front of us. For an entire minute, we didn't breathe or blink, but nothing happened. I guess it really is just a superstition, I said with a sigh of relief. Chapter 3. Then a low scraping noise stopped us in our tracks. We watched in horror as the mummy slowly opened the lid of the red sarcophagus. This can't be happening. We both squeaked at the same time. I felt as if my feet had grown roots and fastened me to the ground. Oh, we're going to get in so much trouble, I moaned. Simon hurried to pick the book up from the ground. The sarcophagus was now completely open, and the mummy slowly sat up. He looked right at Simon. Hey, over here, I yelled, distracting the mummy long enough for Simon to grab the book and back away. We turned and ran out the door. We sped down the stairs and hid behind one of the pillars at the far end of the next month. My heart was beating so fast I could barely speak. What are we going to do now? I gasped. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. Just keep an eye out for the mummy while I search this book for answers, he said. So I crouched down and peeked out from behind the pillar, waiting for the mummy to find us. I think I found something, he whispered, but it was too late. The mummy had entered the room and was coming down the stairs toward us. Save it for later. We have to get out of here now, I insisted, yanking Simon up by the back of his collar and rushing him out of the chamber into the long, narrow corridor. I don't think he saw us, I whispered, but I had spoken too soon. The mummy had entered the corridor and was heading toward us. We made a dash for the next chamber and hid behind another pillar in the back of the room. I resumed guard duty and kept an eye on the door. Simon quickly flipped through the pages of the book, frantically trying to find an answer. There's a page missing from this book, he said with frustration. These hieroglyphs only talk about what happens during mummification, but I know I've seen the information we need somewhere. Chapter 4. Simon mumbled and started to pace about the room. I couldn't believe it. If Simon wasn't able to solve the problem, we were really going to be in trouble. I started to panic. Why did you have to be stared at those pictures on that wall instead of listening to the guide's warning? I grilled Simon. If you had been paying attention, we wouldn't be in this mess. But shouting at Simon didn't make me feel any better. I was just about to apologize when he jumped up and hugged me. That's it. The hieroglyphs in the ritual shaft. That's where I saw it. Thanks, Amy. That was good thinking. He ran ahead, leaving me all alone in the room with the mummy fast approaching. Wait for it! Wait for me! I screamed, running after him. Simon was already hard at work when I burst into the room. Quick, Amy, wrote this down. I swung my backpack to the dirt floor and pulled out a note and pen. I wrote repeatedly as he detected the words from the wall. We were finished in no time. What's the plan, Simon? I turned my head first one way and then the other as I tried to watch the doorway and Simon at the same time. Chapter 5. First, we have to lure the mummy back into the burial chamber, Simon said. Once he's there, we need to recite these words to put him back to sleep. It sounded simple enough, and I was beginning to feel confident that everything would work out. Then Simon added, hopefully he crawls back into the sarcophagus before he falls asleep. Otherwise, we'll have to put him in there ourselves. I groaned just as the mummy entered the room. He's back, I whispered arrogantly, cramming my notebook into my pack as we got ready to initiate our plan. We waited until the mummy had descended the stairs before sprinting by him, back up the stairs and into the corridor. I looked over my shoulder and saw the mummy coming after us. It worked. He's following us, and he's moving much faster. I guess he's wide awake now, Simon said. We raced down the stairs into the burial chamber and ducked into the annex room off to the left. Simon pulled the notebook from my pack and found the page. We waited and watched as the mummy grunted and stomped around the chamber, trying to find us. I signaled Simon to begin reading. A king of kings. Pharaoh of the land lie back down to rest in the burning desert sand. Simon recited the words from our hiding place. We watched closely to see if it was taking effect. The mummy took a step in our direction. Quick, read the second verse, I said arrogantly, and Simon resumed reading. In a red sarcophagus we were kept, where you spent 30,000 years in slumber. Return now to the place you slept and travel back to your time of wonder. The mummy stopped and rubbed his eyes as he turned and headed toward the sarcophagus. It was working. The mummy climbed back into his sarcophagus and lay back down. We waited a full minute until we were satisfied he was asleep, and then we tiptoed over and slowly closed the lid. We did it! I grinned triumphantly, and we gave each other a high five. Then Simon nudged my shoulder and said, Wake up, Amy! Chapter 6. Huh? I opened my eyes and looked around, confused. I said wake up, sleepyhead. Simon jumped to his feet. We are here, come on. I looked out the window at the pyramids as the last of our classmates stepped off the bus. It had all been a dream. Of course it was. I laughed, hurrying to catch up with Simon. Hopefully the real tour didn't involve being chased by a 3,000-year-old mummy.